Welcome to our February 2023 session for Maturity Model for Microsoft 365 practitioners. It's great for you to be here. We're looking forward to sharing what we've been up to. In this session, we are going to be talking about, well, employee experience. Originally, it was around employee experience versus staff and training, but it's really talking about employee experience alongside the staff and training is an aspect of that. And we've got Marc, the two Simons, and Sharon and Emily will be joining us. We can switch to the next slide, please. So in the agenda today, we are going to be talking about the practitioners and maturity models, giving you an overview as we always do, and providing the updates and explaining the purpose of the maturity model and this practitioner session. We will do a picture time that with together mode, so we can capture all your smiling faces and waving hands, and then talk through our topic today, which is around employee experience, which is the hot topic in the Microsoft 365 world.
Yep, I forgot to update that slide. That's last month's topic, but we'll not do a retroactive here.
So yeah, we're here every month. It's generally the third Tuesday of the month, and we'll share this link in here. But if you've got that link, then that will give you access to our calendar invite, which is reoccurring. And Simon's just on. Simon, do you want to pick up on the approaching articles of Microsoft Docs? Oh, you're on mute, bud.
No, he's not going to listen to us about being on mute.
I will. Anyway, so the purpose of the maturity model, as ever, is helping share sort of our knowledge, experience from the community, helping organizations improve the way that they can deliver their business and meet their business objectives using technology, using Microsoft 365. But this model doesn't have, it's not wedded to Microsoft 365. It could be used for other with other technologies as well. The idea is to have a structure that businesses can use to benchmark where they are around key competencies, and we can see those listed on the right-hand side. It also as well helps people like ourselves talk to senior management and help the senior management teams understand the benefits and the impacts that technologies like Microsoft 365 can give that business, and hopefully that helps us to do cool new stuff and interesting stuff which we all want to be doing. But it also helps create a roadmap as well behind that, so we can use the maturity model to create a roadmap and hone in on those areas, those competencies which is important to your business or your organization and the teams within it. As you can see on the right side, we've got a set of competencies which are all listed there, and if we just hone in on what's currently in progress, where our effort is at the moment is around the employee experience, and that's what we're going to share today. We do have some tools around helping you run a maturity model 365 workshop, so helping you build up that roadmap and understand where your business is and where it wants to be. And then we've got supporting articles, so principles, what do we mean by search, what do we mean by communication, and then how to elevate articles which explaining how you could move from one maturity model level to another in those 5 competencies.
I think if anyone is new to these calls, it's important to point out that all of this is open source. This is community-driven content. We're very interested in your thoughts. If you read one of these articles and you have a difference of opinion, or you have something that you think we should add, we're very much open to that. You can do a pull request in GitHub for it, which can be a little intimidating. But if you have something that you'd like to point out to us, we're always open to submissions of any kind because we don't want friction there.
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay, so
on,
I've managed to get into the room now and my audio and stuff is working. So here we are. So these are the generic descriptions of the level 100 through 500. So 5 levels in the maturity model, with level 100 being the initial, or you might describe it as the rubbish, or we haven't thought about it yet level. Moving up with a set of criteria that define what is at each level. And I think that the criteria are really important to spend some time on. It is not driven by the capabilities of technology. Just because something is easy and you could just turn it on doesn't mean that will be level 100. Oftentimes organizations are not mature enough to even turn it on, and that's why we have a level 100 where you haven't really thought about it. Level 200 is where you're thinking about the capabilities, the needs of the organization, but you haven't really embedded it so it's an automatic activity in the organization. People are sort of, maybe doing it, you've got policies, but not everyone's compliant, all that kind of sort of slightly uncomfortable place if you're a manager. Level 300 is when you start to be pretty robust at things. You're not brilliant, but it's fine. It's good enough for most organizations. It's a good place to be. And then we move up to level 400, where we've got active processes for making sure that we improve things as we go along. It's efficiently rolled out across the organization. We're taking advantage of advanced features where appropriate and all that kind of stuff. And level 500, which is the nirvana. No one really gets there across the organization as a whole, but they maybe have pockets of level 500 within certain competencies, within certain parts of an organization. And that's where you've got the whole thing is just slick and elegant and self-reinforcing, and you're maybe using a lot of automation and maybe even some AI and loads of analytics to make sure everything is as close to perfect as it could conceivably be with the world the way it is today. So that's the general model. The question then, and this is going to be the topic for today, the question is, how do we then apply that to something like employee experience? What does this level 100 through 500 look like if we're thinking explicitly about level 500? If we're thinking explicitly about employee experience, and how is that different to some stuff we've already done with the maturity model around staffing and training? So we're going to have a look at that. But before we do, there we go. Thank you. It's picture time. We try and get a quick video snapshot of everybody every time we do this, just to say thanks to everyone who's coming along and to call out the beautiful smiling faces that makes up our audience. So what we do at this point is ask everyone to turn their video on, unless you're desperately, horribly and uncomfortably shy, but even then you should turn it on. And then we're going to get everyone up into together mode, which I think you have control of, Mark.
I just did it. Hopefully you are all seeing yourselves sitting in a chair.
I don't yet, but that's
not quite
because
yet.
I'm running in the browser.
No?
So we'll live with that.
It's still
Nothing?
sharing.
Well, I see you guys in together mode.
Well, that might be sufficient if you can see it.
Yeah.
And then we'll do the regulatory, give us a smile, give us a wave, and as we're doing that, Mark's
Everybody ready for a wave?
back into it.
Don't be shy, make a face. All right, awesome.
Super. Good job.
Now I have to switch back, whether it worked or not. All right. And sorry, I'm sort of new with this technology stuff. There we go.
Well, aren't we all?
Okay. All right.
Right.
Emily's not here today, so I will talk about this one. So we want this session in particular to be very much a conversation. Hopefully, we won't go off into too many tangents, but what we're looking for is your feedback on what we're thinking about the employee experience competency, which we are, in the beginning stages of writing. So you know the drill, how teams work. So if you want to say something and you'd like to raise your hand, etc., we'd be happy to call on you, or you can just use chat. There are multiple ways that you can contribute to this effort in general. We've already put some links into chat about this. We're always looking for ideas for future sessions. So if you are doing some work in your organization about the maturity model and would like to present a case study, even if it's for 10 minutes, that would be awesome. We would love to hear real world stories about how this is going out there in the field. We hear a lot of people mention the maturity model, but we're always interested in what's the outcome? How's it going? We've talked about contributing on GitHub. You can give us feedback. Again, sort of, don't worry about how you do it. If you want to get in touch with any one of us, we'll be happy to listen to what you have to say. If you want to submit something through the GitHub interface and you know how to do that, that's awesome because it captures it and lets us do version control and things like that. And then the other piece is really to socialize what we're doing. Make sure that if you see information about an upcoming session that you publicize it for us. If you have a user group that you run or that you attend, please let the people know that this effort exists. We're always trying to widen our audience, assuming that there's value here. So please let us know if there are other ways that you think you could socialize and if you need any help with that. This is our schedule for this year. It's always gelling and always shifting a little bit. Last month, we talked about the road mapping our maturity model journey. This month, we're talking about employee experience versus staffing and training, not really versus, but in concert with. We thought next week, especially with all this chat GPT stuff going on, we would talk about artificial intelligence and the maturity model, because not every organization is ready for AI. And then you can see what we're planning for the rest of the year here. If you have any strong feelings about any of these, you notice that we've got to be announced for a lot of the guest stars. If one of you feels like you've got some chops in one of these topics, we'd be happy to have you help drive the session. So please let us know. Thanks for the people who joined us in January. Actually, it was a very long list. I had to make the font smaller. That's always a satisfying feeling. Also, know that there are other sessions from Sharing is Caring that can help you contribute to this effort, or help you sort of up your skills with GitHub and things like that. There are sessions about how to update community docs. There's first-time contributor session, writing for the web, and those are all at that aka.ms link. Next month, like I said, on March 21st, we'll be talking about artificial intelligence and the maturity model. It's every third Tuesday. So if you don't remember what the topic is, but want to drop in, of course you can. Okay, so now we're going to jump into our actual topic. And I'm going to jump quickly to the next slide because I'm talking very fast and I'm not going to pause. So really what we were trying to come up with here is with the staffing and training competency at the time was how do you up your staff and training efforts to support the Microsoft 365 platform well, which is a different focus than the employee experience. They're definitely intermeshed, right? But they're sort of a different slice at the same thing. So as we went back and we reviewed what we had put into the staffing and training competency, we realized that we weren't covering employee experience as well as we thought we could. So we feel like we need a separate competency. So we'll talk a little bit about what we think the employee experience really is. It's not necessarily the same thing that Microsoft thinks, but that's okay. We're going to point out some holes that we see in the staffing and training competency that we think might be filled by employee experience. We want to build that new competency article and materials so that we can add it to the maturity model. We'd also love to get some what we call practical scenarios, which are more real world based articles up there in the repo. You'll notice there's a practical scenarios section, which is a little light right now, but we would love to get some additional articles that provide practical scenarios around employee experience. So, if you think of anything as we're going through, please let us know. And then obviously we want to find out who's interested in helping us write this particular competency, who feels strongly about employee experience. And I know that there's a lot of strong feeling out there. So we're hoping to harness some of that.
Yeah.
Simon D.
Yeah. So I think something which we're excited about. I mean, the maturity model has been quite sort of something based in some theory. It's sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to know where to start. And what we're hoping is that these practical scenarios, which are examples of an application using sort of maturity model concepts, applied to a specific competency or area to solve a specific problem, gives the community, gives people something that they can actually go away and do. So it might be a takeaway, it might be an approach that you can use to improve your organization. So yeah, we're excited about these practical scenarios. So examples might be looking at the ideal new starter employee onboarding process, or how we can improve if we come back to management of content, how we could improve the content lifecycle process. If we look at the search competency, how we might improve how content can be discovered and its findability. So yeah, we'd love to hear your ideas, and you can help us by writing an article on something that you've done within your organization, or even just suggesting a subject area or a problem that you're having, and we can then have a look at that and how we can tackle that problem. So that's the idea of the practical scenarios. Next slide, please.
Okay, so as I mentioned, I think we as a team that's working on the maturity model have sort of kicked around, well, what is the employee experience? And one of the most obvious things we realized is that the employee experience is not just Viva modules, right? And if you take a very technology focused view of what an employee experience is and sort of follow the marketing rhetoric, it's all about Viva, right? We've got a bunch of Viva modules. If we just get those up and running and everything, and make sure there's good content there, then all of our employees are going to be ecstatic and love working here. We think it's a lot more than that. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we think we need to broaden our edges away from just Viva. And in fact, like we do with all of these competencies, we're trying to talk more from a business perspective than a technology perspective. What are the things that an organization needs to be thinking about to create a good employee experience, as opposed to what specific technology tools do they need in order to do that? The connection is there, but that's not what we try to lead with. So one of the things we realized is Simon is going to do this slide. That's what we realized. At least I did.
Thanks, Mark.
When in doubt, call on Simon. Sorry.
So, I mean, when we sort of in, thinking about employee experience, we're kind of trying to look at it from lots of different perspectives. We were coming up with, trying to come up with interesting approaches. So one area we were thinking, well, what if you were tackling employee experience and you're trying to engage the business, what areas would the senior management team be interested in? So we sort of broke down into these various roles. So employee experience is is a senior management activity. We've talked about this actually. It's a top down and bottom up, but if you were trying to engage those senior management, which roles would you go for? So CEO, we think they're really interested in that vision, culture, the strategy of the business, and so we'd be looking to use the 365 tools, Yammer, or Viva Engage, isn't it? Microsoft Teams, using news, SharePoint news posts to talk about what's going on in the organization. On the Viva side, using Viva goals to help align the business and the departments and teams to that strategy and those main business objectives. If we then sort of move from the CEO to the chief operations officer, who's interested in business process and how the teams collaborate, and we also think management of content as well, then their focus on 365 is around SharePoint and Teams, and and the big one for me in particular, we've got a new operations manager, is looking at how we can share those business processes and that knowledge, the business using Viva Topics. If you're in HR, you've got the Chief People Officer, then it's around training and people and communities and employee experience. So again, with SharePoint, Teams, and Yammer, and Microsoft 365 tool set, and then the Viva tools. Viva Learning, establishing those learning pathways, understanding, getting the pulse of the organisation with Viva Glint, and then the pulse of a team with Viva Pulse as well, and understanding how the people are working together using Viva Insights. The CFO, well, they're interested in competencies around governance and risk compliance, around the tool set which they might be interested in is around Purview. I'm not sure on the Viva tool side. I don't think we haven't got anything there. Maybe Viva Goals, but be interested in hearing your views. CTO, CIO, interested in infrastructure, information, search. So we've got the M365 tool around search, and of course SharePoint and Teams in there as well. And then moving down to marketing and communication, the Chief Marketing Officer, Yammer or Viva Engage, SharePoint. We've also put in Power Portals and Power Pages, how we could maybe have our clients and our customers interacting with us as well. And the Viva, and on the Viva tools aspect, using Viva Connection, Viva Engage, and Viva Amplify when that is released to help establish more effective communication across the organisation. And then finally, you can't forget about sales, of course. You've got the Chief Sales Officer who's interested, in their CRM, the dynamics, and Viva Sales being the main sort of Viva tool there. Yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Have we got this wrong? What areas do you think we're missing? So yeah, let us know. Right, next.
Sharon's not here yet, I don't think.
So I'll pick this one up. So we've just said that that employee experience is a top-down leadership driven activity, but it's also a bottom-up staff-driven activity. Like so many good things in good businesses, it comes from both directions, top and bottom. And this would be a sort of a typical hierarchy of engagement. So think about this being a bit like Maslow's hierarchy. At the bottom, people who are just in it just for the money, they're not going to be very engaged employees. What we need to do is lift them, help them through the organisation, so they get some of those other personal needs addressed, things like inclusion and camaraderie and those personal things, right up to the point where they feel they're making a difference, and that they're self-fulfilled through that, and right up to that self-actualization thing. If anybody wants to go and look up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's a really powerful tool when thinking about your organizational culture. So all we're saying here is that when we're trying to think about employee experience, it's not just something which is imposed on you, although senior management have a serious role to play. It's not just the organizational culture that the senior management and the rest of the management team are trying to create, but it's also about the way that staff interact with that and become part of that that organizational culture and therefore the organizational experience. Thank you for that link, Mark. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, one of my favorite things. So what we're basically saying is, next slide, is it's everyone's responsibility, whether you're top, bottom, in the middle, whether you're a new joiner or you're an old hand or you're the person that founded the company. This stuff about employee experience sits with you. And certainly my observation is that some of the most significant failings of employee experience come from peer-to-peer interactions. So you can't just point the finger at the people at the top or the people at the bottom. Right. So let's actually think about the life cycle of an employee, which I think is you, Marc.
Yeah. So as we were thinking about, where does Viva fit into this? How do we think about, as consultants, we think about everything, right? How do we think about the span of an employee experience? We actually thought, well, this is much broader than just the time that you are actually working at a place. So there's sort of the pre-employee experience, the during employee experience, and the post-employee experience. If you think about the maturity model, a lot of I would posit that the lower maturity levels, you're mostly focused, if you're focused on employee experience at all, you're focused on it during the time that someone is in employment, right? While they're working at your organization. At higher levels of maturity, I would say that you're probably paying more attention to what's the process of coming in as an employee like, and what is it like after you leave, and can you maintain a high quality of employment experience even at those levels? And it probably extends all the way back to, how does the company market itself to potential employees? Then how do you recruit them? How do you hire them? The onboarding process, which in a lot of organizations is actually not all that great. So that, if you don't have a good onboarding process, then you don't probably have a very high level of maturity from an employee experience perspective. Also, understanding, and that green thing, that green box with the arrow, is something I added because I think it's something that a lot of organizations forget about when they're building systems or they're building an intranet, is not everybody knows, everyone knows where that thing is. Everyone knows how to do this particular thing. Those new employee user stories, you have to sort of manifest them in everything that you do in the organization. If you've never been to the cafeteria before, what's that experience like? I mean, it comes down to a lot of very simple stuff that everyone assumes that, you've been here a long time, you have to know how everything works. So onboarding is very important in having that new employee user story mindset. There's management and growth during the time that you're an employee. How do you rise up through the ranks if that's what you want to do? Or how do you go deeper into the discipline that is yours to focus on? And can you succeed in both different ways? Sometimes going up the ladder isn't the right answer for particular people. It's, let me be better at what I do and stay at the level of function that I have today. So how do promotion and reassignment work? How does that whole sort of employee HR kind of churn work? And then and this is where most of the Viva modules are going to focus, right? Because if you're not part of the organization beforehand or afterwards, you don't have access to Viva anymore. So they sort of, by their very nature, only cover that during employee phase. And then post-employee, there's some things that some organizations do very well, but most don't do at all. Some sort of offboarding function, so that you understand. You learn from why people are leaving the organization and what they're leaving for, and what feedback they have for the organization that is positive or negative, so that you can learn and grow. And then some organizations even go so far as to have an alumni relations function. They stay in touch with their old employees. I used to work at Bain & Company, and they still reach out to me as an ex-employee 25 or 30 years later, and invite me to things, and sort of they have an office that I could reach out to and ask for help with my career and things like that. So there are a lot of things that we can do for employees that are not Viva focused, they're not technology focused necessarily, but that Microsoft 365 can sort of at a base level support all the way along this process, if you think about how to manifest these things. And that was a lot of talking, so I'm probably going to stop now and hand it over to Simon. I can always say Simon because there's lots of Simons.
Yes, this Simon. So here's the thing. We're sort of working our way through how to write this competency right now. There's a couple of things that we're sort of grappling with. One is the interaction between this employee experience and the already existing staff and training competency. We're pretty sure that they're different. We're pretty sure that lots of the staff and training is a subset of employee experience. I'm going to delve into that in a bit more detail in a minute. But what we're trying to do to get the handle on this, and this is where we'd like your help, is what are the subcategories, the subcharacteristics within the employee experience competency? We've put some suggestions up here. We could make an argument that we can split employee experience into support and knowledge transfer, skilling people up and giving them the tools and knowledge they need, giving them a good working environment, what that that work experience looks like, what that culture that we've already talked a little bit about might feel like to be in it, and what are the things that happen to make sure that staff well-being and inclusion and belonging, all those sort of soft things are well looked after. And for a couple of these, you can see we've put out just some ideas of what the sort of not very good at it 100 level is, through to decent 300 level and pretty good 500 level. But what we're looking for is this set of subcharacteristics enough? Have we missed something? What are the other things that we should be putting in at each of the levels for each of these different headings? So we're going to actively request that. If you've got an idea right now, please put it in the chat or send us an email or put it on Twitter. Any damn way will do. Because we're in the process of trying to write this document up, and we would love some view, because all of you are operating in different organizations. And we're not so ecumenical that we think that we have the only view on what it feels like to be in organizations. So we'd really appreciate your feedback on the headings and what these individual characteristics might be like. While you ponder that,
maybe pause here and see if anybody has anything they want to come off mute and say about this one. It's always fun to put everyone on the spot.
Yeah.
Now we're down to Simon.
Oh, hi. If I can just mention something quickly. It's hi. Yeah, I think it's just support and knowledge transfer seems problematic to me, because I'm thinking of people and communities a lot for that. Because I was considering people and communities as around how people interact with each other in teams and communicate, and a lot of that relates to transferring knowledge amongst themselves, peer to peer. Therefore, this bit in the upper left might overlap too much with the people and communities. And I think that this one is probably broader across all teams, and so things like culture and well-being are much more appropriate.
Okay, I think that's a terrific point, Mark. We're battling to try and make sure that we've got some edges around this competency compared with some of the others. But let me just ask the question back to you, if I may. So I completely agree about that sort of spontaneous peer-to-peer and community-to-community interaction. What about the stuff that the organisation needs you to know? How does that piece get addressed? Where you need to know what the fire drills are, you need to know what the HR position is, and all those kind of formalised pieces of knowledge transfer from the organisation to the staff.
Yeah, I think that's in the communications competency, because if I recall, that's more org-wide. And so that might be, say, how you use SharePoint communication sites, say, from HR to communicate these things. And I'm doing a project at the moment with a nonprofit where I kind of thought some aspects of communication, the org-wide side, fell into that side of things with what HR might need to communicate. I get with onboarding side of things, but that's more structured knowledge than experience. Like there may be an aspect of that which relates to how good the experience is, like how many modes do you have for learning, but in itself, I don't think it's exactly about knowledge transfer.
Okay,
That
Marc, I think
makes
those are
sense?
both cracking points. No, I think it's absolutely right. I'm hoping that somebody's captured all that. If not, we're going to have to go back and watch the recording. But I think you're absolutely right. I think that whole section can be covered under people and communities and the communication competencies. We may need to just tweak those two documents to make them explicitly doing that. So that's great. Terrific. This is the kind of contribution we want. Has anybody got any other suggestions or thoughts?
Only Mark's
no
jumping in
pressure.
today, not Simon's.
So, yeah, my name is Sanjeev. I have a question here. So, when you talk about knowledge sharing, you are talking about the ongoing work, that employees are doing on the technology side and sharing that information across, the team. Is that what we are referring to here?
That's an aspect of it, isn't it? But it's a it's a part of it. It's it might be more formal. This is these are the business processes which this team runs. It also may be how you escape from the building when the fire alarm goes off. So there's but that's definitely part of it. But it's also a broader knowledge transfer as well. What are the things when you start an organization, what are the things that you need to know to be able to do your job and do it well?
Yeah, a lot of what people spend their days doing are not technology based, but the technologies within Microsoft 365 are often the way we deliver that information to people. So yes, we need them to be good at looking at the intranet, but we also have to make sure that the content that they need in order to be a good employee exists somewhere that they can access.
Okay. Okay. I was just talking more from a day-to-day work that employees perform and knowledge sharing regarding that. So we have a regular program, where we almost spend 10 to 15% on a weekly basis doing that knowledge sharing.
Okay, cool.
Great. That's great.
Yeah.
Not a lot of organizations invest that time.
Yeah, because it's helpful when you have customers, trying to find an answer or solution. If you have multiple employees, knowing the things, it helps with you being more proactive with the customers and delivering solutions rather than customers having to wait for you.
Yeah. So how do you how do you communicate that? Is that through, do you have meetings or do you publish that content? Or,
We have like say we usually set up one meeting a week between teams where they are sharing each other's work. We spend sometimes even half a day on
cool.
that.
I worked for a company years ago where every Friday was learning day, and we would schedule multiple topics and meetings for back then we had to go into rooms to see each other, and we would have multiple learning opportunities on Fridays. It was a consulting company, so Monday through Thursday we might be traveling, but Friday was sort of sacrosanct, and we would be in the office and we would learn things. That was an unusual thing, especially in a consulting organization, because that was unbillable time on purpose. So I think that investment that you're talking about it's a more mature level. It's saying, somebody is saying, okay, bringing people's skills up is, from a knowledge management perspective, from a customer satisfaction perspective, really important. That then makes employees happier with what they do because they're supported. They're learning on the job. That's a great point.
Sorry, if
Mark, your hand is up.
Awesome knowledge transfer. With the three sub-competencies, the headings that we've got, do we think that that adequately covers everything that we can imagine currently would sit in employee experience? Or is there anything missing?
Sorry, I was just going to come in on something else, but around the work experience, where you're talking about the content like safety, environment, and things like that. I think to maybe unpick some of the confusion, like there's the content that's there, like under work experience, but then there's like, how well is this delivered to people? Does everyone know of these things, as opposed to the content themselves, if that makes sense? So I think there's something maybe to look at in that sense to avoid some of the confusion, if that makes any sense. So, you know, you could see some of this as, yes, you know, everybody needs to know about safety, environment, and so on, and that's going to be part of the communication to some degree, because that's content that needs to get across. But on another level, how well is this received? Do people are people able to access this content very easily and be knowledgeable about it, or is there a lot of work to be done in that people are confused by it or not aware of it or something? So it may be on a more qualitative basis than a content basis, if that makes sense, some of this.
Yeah.
It does make sense. It's almost like the information architecture for the organization itself. I think that's what I hear you saying. It's, how do I know that something even exists, or how do I get to it? The experience of, you know, it's that experience of walking into an office building and not seeing any signs that tell you which direction to go for various functions. Yeah.
So I think it's just reframing this so it's more clear in the sense of, how able are people to be aware of these topics, you know, and, you know, do they feel comfortable about or confident that they know these things? So, you know, it's how they feel about these things. Do they feel confident? Do they feel knowledgeable? Or are they confused by it? And, you know, that indicates something needs to be added to the experience of knowing these topics. It's not the topics themselves as such.
Yep.
If that, you know, just sort of relating to this idea of employee experience.
Yeah, it's some of that you could certainly cover with the onboarding experience, right? You know, here are the places that you can get information about all of the stuff you need to know. But it's almost like you need to revisit that every once in a while. You know, every 6 months we have the you're new again meeting, right? Sort of a refresher, because things change all the time, right?
Yeah, and then what about performance management? So, you know, do you feel you know where you're going in your career within that you know, company? You know, and you know, it's that in fact, yeah, performance management should probably be on there. But it's, you know, again, it's more around how well do people feel in control of their career paths, or you know, they know where they're going, etc. And you know, in that sense, you know, that qualitative sense is sort of what I was getting across. Yeah. So
Marc, you've got some great ideas here. I'm wondering if you'd be interested in helping us flesh this out some more after the call. I mean, not right after, but, you know, could we reach out to you, or maybe share some drafts with you and things like that? I mean, that's one of the things we wanted to get from this call. You know, who in the audience feels strongly about this and has some interesting things to say, which you clearly do. I'm recruiting you.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to work through all the competencies with a client, you know, and I see how there are different interpretations to these things, you know, and also there's a need to clarify these so, you know, you're properly reviewing them in their appropriate boxes, you know. So yeah, I was just trying to figure out an approach to it. But yeah, I happen to be sort of in this area and a couple of others. So yeah, we can always email offline and get some way to
Awesome.
exchange some views. That's fun.
Yeah. Just on that, you know, the work experience with the safety environment, I guess another part of that is being able to influence that as well, to make it more safe, to be able to improve environment and feel that you're being listened to, I guess, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, one last thing is obviously inclusivity. So, you know, I mean, I would have imagined people who might need adaptations in the workplace also. And the fact that they could maybe have some means of being able to specify if they have any special requirements to support them in the workplace, you know, for instance. So accessibility.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think just in the interest in making through some of the other content, we should probably move forward. But Marc, we would love to keep you involved in this conversation.
Yeah, it's fine. No problem. Move on. I don't want to hold it up.
No, everything you're saying is very helpful. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that was really, really great stuff. Thanks, Marc. Yeah, you know, we were, you know, the kind of what started this all off was, you know, this staff and training versus employee experience, and we wanted to talk about differences really. So this, what, you know, staff and training really, when we were thinking about that competency, was around system adoption. And so with staff and training, we had these different levels. You know, the system, you know, level 100 is, you know, it's launched and there's no training, there's no guidance. You know, people just have to kind of, you know, just make it up as they go along, and you know, and try their best. And you know, generally that system doesn't really go very far. You know, when people get stuck. With level 100, you know, there's no information available. Moving on to level 200, you know, then we've got a small community. There might be an individual or a small group of users who help and provide support to the organization. You know, and they are not the help desk, they're not IT, they are, you know, maybe another department. The IT help desk functionality, they're purely, you know, if it's, they just fix it, they reboot the servers, they reset applications, and then they just provide that break fix. So in level 200, it's okay, you know, we're starting to get some sort of support capability. When we move on to 300, the IT resource, there is IT resource, they're knowledgeable about the system, they're available, they can provide some guidance and strategic guidance on where that resource is and how it can be used within the organization. It's, again, you know, a typical level 300, it's well thought out, it's proactive. From there, we've got moving to level 400, you know, we're starting to kind of look at how, you know, what effect is this system having on the organization, and to do that we need to put metrics in place. We need to be able to report on what's being used and how often it's being used, so we can sort of show the organization and senior management, you know, this system is having an impact, this is how it's benefiting us. And then from level 400 to level 500, this, building this community, this and a community centers of excellence around that system, so that there is a user community which can help others get up to speed and solve the problems. And a lot of, if we think about the Power Platform, all the work that's been going on with Power Apps and creating a center of excellence around there with this center of excellence starter kit. So creating that community around it to really help drive and transform how that solution or that system helps the business do more and achieve more.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you made the point that we really were focusing a lot on sort of system adoption with staffing training as opposed to the breadth of employee experience. I'm wondering if we should sort of skip through these next 5 slides and just have a more open conversation. Does that sound good to everybody?
Sounds good to me.
And I think we probably would get more value out of sort of going back to our goals and asking everybody on the call, again, more thoughts. One of the things we were trying to do in this is identify people like Marc, and don't be intimidated if you haven't said anything yet, but somebody who's interested in helping us put together this employee experience competency, talk about what benefits the organization gets out of a good employee experience. And if you have specific examples that we might be able to turn into a practical scenario, that would be awesome. But any other thoughts? Any other thoughts from folks who are on the call? Happy to see it in chat or have you come off mute, raise questions, give us your thoughts. Don't make me go back to those other slides.
Okay, Bruno, you've got your hand up. Do you want to tell us what you're thinking?
Hello, everyone. I have one point to make here regarding the onboarding. I'm working for the organization where, in fact, the client where they need to hire the people every week, and where I feel that there is onboarding process which is already there, but which is lacking employee experience when new hires join the organization, and whatever the experience we should give them from the beginning, which is missing there. And I feel we kind of make a process for those new hires people where we can involve everything, whatever is expected from the beginning, or they should feel comfortable once they join the organization. What is their role? What is their responsibility for what they are working, and what is their competency? So I think that would be beneficial for an organization where those are hiring every week and now and then. And it's kind of easy experience for the new hires. So that's what I wanted to say. Yep.
Yeah, I think organizations that have a high turnover like that need to think about things in a slightly different way than an organization that has very low turnover. Same concerns, but at different rates, at different frequencies, probably.
Okay.
We'll have to figure out how we can sort of get that the extremes of that spectrum maybe reflected in the competency somehow.
Yeah, maybe that's defining that scope, isn't it? Maybe that's a part of it's defining the scope of the employee onboarding, I guess. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, the major challenge we see that once the new hires join the organization, they feel that, or they are not able to identify their roles. Even everything has been provided them that, hey, look, this is your team that you are going to join. You will be working with these many people and they're expert on different things. they will guide you on different things, but still something is missing or something is lacking there. And at the end, the new hires feel that I'm lacking somewhere, I'm not able to perform, and they are feeling backward kind of uh, in the maybe their routine work or something.
Yeah, that sort of lack of purpose.
Yeah, I
Where
think
they fit in. Yeah.
I'd be interested for the folks on the call, and I was going to do a poll, but I don't think I can do it because I'm not in the right tenant. How long does it take in your organization before somebody feels like they're, sort of up to speed? Especially if you're, maybe you're putting people on the job right away, but how long does it take? My experience is it's about 3 months in a lot of sort of knowledge worker roles. What kind of period do you see in your organizations? How long does it take for someone to feel competent and comfortable?
Yes. So we have seen the people who are more experienced on the different technologies, and if they are experienced, they are able to catch up the things immediately. What is expected from the role and the project and the daily activities and functions that they should perform on the role. But the people which are kind of junior or uh, less than 5 years of experience, I would say they are not much competent, or they are lacking in this process.
Yeah, we sort of work with juniors, and we sort of say 6 months. Yeah, and I think Marc, I sort of agree with you. 3 months for more senior, or maybe middle. Yeah,
more seniors. Yep, they can catch up everything within 1 or 2 months max.
actually, in my company, this is Sanjeev. In my company, when we hire senior people, that means, for me, more than 10. And in that case, maybe 15, 20 days, people get the things going. And junior people, again, 3 months.
Cool. Marath, I saw you had your hand up.
Hi there.
Are you there?
Yes,
there
I
you are.
just have a hello. Show my face. Yes. One thing I'm thinking about. One thing is how long time from like the day they start until they kind of run on their own. But then I'm a bit curious how much time do the company use on that person in the onboarding? If you have like a half a day or just a day, this is the company, you're welcome. That might not be enough. What I've seen, and also I experienced myself, is to have like a 3-day onboarding where it all divided up into meeting different parts of the organization, have some team building within the newbie group, like you are like 10 or more starting at the same time, and then you kind of have your own break the ice exercises and explain yourself, and so you kind of become like a class that this is my group that I started with, and then we kind of become friends supporting each other along the way. So actually investing a few days in the first time, not just that one day good luck kind of thing, but you actually have at least 3 full working days and spend some time, because you need some time. So that is one key, I think, is a plus that you can take with you.
Cool. Thank you. Anyone else? This has been great. Love to have the conversation like this. I'd speak for all of us in that. It's much more fun to get your perspectives and valuable than just to have us talking. He says as he talks. So it is 1 minute before the hour. So thank you very much for joining us. A bunch of links here that can help you get engaged more with the maturity model if you'd like to. Our next call will be March 21st, where we'll be talking about artificial intelligence in the maturity model. I'm sure there will be a lot of opinions on that one, and something will have changed between now and then because it's a very fast moving topic. And I think with that one, we're hoping will also be very much a conversation because, the paint's still wet on all of that. We'd love to get your thoughts. We will absolutely give you the presentation. We put it into see the link there that says slide decks. It will be there right after the call. And then we also post the videos on YouTube. That's the YouTube link that's right above it. So you should have access to everything. And I will make sure that these links on that slide go into the chat as well. Thanks for joining us. There they go. Thanks, Simon. And we hope we'll see you next month. Please get in touch if you have any additional thoughts. We'd love to hear them.
Yeah, thanks very much for the interaction, everybody. That was great.
Yeah, thanks all.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Look
great
forward
week.
to being more in touch. Thank you.